I'm Jackie.
And I'm Richard.
And we're Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We've just been driving down through France for our winter ski holiday and we're heading towards the Alps. We've had loads of time to chat.
We've had about 9 hours worth of drive from Calais.
And one of the things that we've been chatting about is why on earth you'd ever consider coming to the Alps in the summer.
So as we said in the intro, we had a lot of time to sit and think about what it is that we love about the Alps in the summer. And the main thing for us is just the sheer enormity of those mountains.
When you're driving down, you just cannot believe how enormous the whole landscape is. We travel a lot in the UK and we love the outdoors and we love the wild places in the UK. But the Alps is something else. Every valley you go into just really takes your breath away, and it is just a joy to be able to drive in places like that.
It's just stunning. There's no other word for it. The main activities that we do when we're in the Alps is hiking. We love to get out into the hills, the valleys, the mountains, and the wildflower meadows are just simply beautiful.
We didn't really know what to expect. 4 or 5 years ago, we hadn't been to the Alps in the summer, and one of our fears, thinking about what the ski resorts are like, was that there would be just huge masses of pistes that have been carved into the mountain and all of that meadow would be spoiled. But you could not be further from the truth. In the summer, it's rolling hills, beautiful meadows, and there's none of that industrial ski resort feel.
No, and I also thought that the villages would be like ghost towns, that they'd be really empty, but they're really vibrant. The cafes are all open, the restaurants are open, they're really busy.
And one of the things associated with the wildflower meadows is obviously you're in a national park and there's so much wildlife around. So one of the things that we like doing is our undoubted love for the mountain marmot.
You can hear them calling to each other, particularly if you get close to where their little dens are. They love it in the rocky parts of the mountains, and you can just hear the sounds trilling through the valleys if they see you, and it just puts you on high alert to look for them.
And you know, the sheer joy of having the camera long lens and being able to see them up close and personal is just one of the treats of the summer in the Alps.
Yeah, we've had a couple of days where we've just sat on the rocks and picnicked and watched them running around us.
You may be surprised to know that within the mountains there's an incredible number of freshwater lakes, and that provides a whole host of different opportunities when you're out in the summer, because the lakes are reasonably warm.
Some of them are blooming freezing.
But the fact that you've got fresh water there,
Yeah.
And the resorts and the villages are really good at setting up beach type areas. So one of the things that we loved when we didn't come to the Alps was beach holidays.
We love photography as well, and some of the lakes are just, I can't even put it into words. We'll put some of the photos that we've taken on our travels. The lakes are just beautiful. They are crystal clear blue. Some are warm. Most are freezing. Absolutely fab to swim in because it's just nice and fresh. And I also love, when we're walking through the valleys leading to a lot of these lakes, or feeding into the lakes, is the glacial rivers. They've got a colour of their own in the Alps, haven't they? They're like
It's a sort of a light bluey, opaque colours.
Yeah. They're just beautiful.
So as we've said, we love hiking, and we know that hiking isn't for everyone, and we know that getting into the high mountains isn't for everyone, but we enjoy that. But there's so many other things that you can do within the Alps in the summer that you've perhaps not even thought of.
Yeah, we take our road bikes with us whenever we come out to the Alps, not because we like cycling on hilly landscapes by any means, but like at the moment we're on Lake Anisee, and last time we were here we cycled around the lake a couple of times, and it's 40 kilometres, it's flat, it's beautiful, and you feel like you've had a good day's exercise.
If you're into your mountain biking, I can't think of any place better to come. We're not but we go to these places where they are so set up, and it's almost like the winter activity of skiing just transitions straight across into mountain biking, and they are huge resorts for mountain biking.
Yep, I also love on all the different lakes that you can hire paddleboards, kayaks. There's a lot of water sports going on, windsurfing.
And then for the adrenaline junkies, there's you can do partnered parascending. Not my sort of cup of tea, floating about above the valley, but it is there for people to do.
And the one thing that we do want to have a go at, and we're going to buy the equipment for when we come out in the summer, is the via ferratas. Not the fearsome ones that look really scary and they're graded, but when we were up in Courchevel last summer, there was one that I really wanted to have a go at if we'd got the equipment with us.
So via ferrata, for those people that don't know, it's a bit like sort of structured rock climbing. So there's handholds, but you're clipped in all the time.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned that hiking isn't for everyone, and getting up high isn't for everyone, because it's hard work. But the benefit of coming to the Alps is that they're really, really well set up with lifts, and the lifts that they use in the winter are repurposed in the summer for tourists, and you can get really, really high up with very little effort.
Yeah, and they're not expensive either in the summer. We were walking in Chamonix a couple of years ago, and I think we spent maybe €20 each to get really high. But once we were up there, we couldn't have walked there in a day. And once we were up there, we found some of the most beautiful landscapes and just the scenery that you don't see lower in the valleys. So it is worth spending money on some of the lifts. Most of the time we do walk from the valley floor because we don't want to spend all our money on lifts.
But there are one or two exceptions to that, and
yes.
We'll talk about that in a while about the individual places, but there are one or two iconic lifts that take you to the most unbelievable places, like the highest place in Europe and the highest train station in Europe and things like that, that we'll talk about a little bit later on.
I pictured summers in the Alps as being quite wet, cold, windy and miserable, if I'm honest, but we've been here for 4 different summers and the weather is generally brilliant. The temperatures are around 20 to mid-20s. It gets nice and cool at night, so you're not boiling hot like we have been when we were in Croatia in the van. It's a really good temperature for being out about and active. Don't get me wrong, we have been caught in some torrential downpour weathers as well. But then again, I have done in the south of France, so.
And probably the final thing that we want to say is to do with how connected the Alpine regions are across Europe.
Yeah, we almost made it a thing to see how many different countries we could fit in our 4-week trip. We're teachers, so we get quite long holidays. I think we did 9 different countries because it's so quick to go from France, Chamonix, through the Mont Blanc tunnel. You're in Italy, quite a short drive across until you're into Switzerland, and it's easy to get to all those different places.
So it may take a while to actually get down to the Alps. It's probably about a 10-hour drive, but once you're here, you really do have a choice of where you want to go, and most places are reasonably accessible. One of the things I love, and one of the things that Jackie doesn't particularly love,
they really do scare me,
are the high mountain passes, and the benefit of coming in the summer. In the winter, those high mountain passes are closed and they're often ski runs, whereas in the summer the roads are opened up and you've got that opportunity to drive over some really quite iconic mountain roads that often cross borders, and they're really, really fun to drive. They're like nothing you've ever driven before, but they are really fun.
My favourite place in the Alps is Chamonix. I love it. We've been 3 times. It's a place that I will always want to keep returning to.
It's an epic mountain resort that has been there for over 100 years. It was pretty much founded by British mountaineers, and it's still got that feel for the high mountains.
I love how vibrant it is. The town centre is just full of either climbers, hikers, bikers. It's also got a lot of very posh tourists. When you stay on the different campsites, a bonus is that you get given a train pass and you can go up and down the valley right up to the borders of Switzerland. It's just the most amazing place to go.
And a must-do in Chamonix is it's quite expensive, but getting the lift up to the Aiguille du Midi, which is a huge pinnacle just to the side of Mont Blanc, and you get the cable car all the way up, and it's otherworldly up there. We spent quite a bit of our time, because it's one of our kids' favourite places to ski, in Val d'Isère, and we pretty much knew that it was going to be a really good summer resort, and it didn't let us down. It's a really good base for mountain biking. It's very, very popular with road bikers because of its links to the Tour de France and the Col de Liseran, which is an iconic Tour de France climb. But it's just a beautiful village, and it's really, really well set up for summer activities. In winter, possibly one of the more expensive venues in France, whereas in the summer we found it really reasonable.
We did, and it's the wildflower meadows there are just stunning, and the river that runs through the town centre is one of those glacial blue rivers that I talked about.
And Val d'Isère is a top spot for marmot spotting.
Yeah.
One of our other favourite destinations is the Jungfrau in Switzerland. It's again a very old series of ski resorts that have been linked together in a very, very efficient Swiss way using the mountain railways. And it's home to places like Wengen and Muren, places that all appear on the World Cup skiing stage but are just beautiful in the summer.
As you drive into the Jungfrau area and the village, the main village, which is called Lauterbrunnen, the sheer volume of the cliffs that surround you is just breathtaking. The valley is just stunning. And one of the trips that we would recommend if you went to the Jungfrau area is a very expensive trip. It's to a top mountain station. It's the highest point in Europe that you can get to, called the Jungfrau Joch. Once you're up there, you can then take a walk to one of that mountain refuges and have lunch. I can't even describe it.
Leaving the valley in the heat of the summer
Yeah.
and then getting out of the train out on the glacier where there's snow, and you're walking a couple of miles on snow to get to the mountain refuge, is very, very surreal, but absolutely beautiful.
Another one of my favourite places to go to is the Julian Alps in Slovenia. We were going to drive through Slovenia to get to Croatia on one of our trips. We weren't particularly going to stay, were we? We wanted to go to Lake Bohinj, but we couldn't get in there. It was just manic. And we ended up going to the Triglav National Park instead. Wow.
Yeah, we stayed at Kranjska Gora, which is, again, another ski resort. But Slovenia I class as one of the last great wildernesses. It's the undiscovered Alps. Not many people know about it apart from Slovenians. We very definitely found it quite alien because the language is like unlike anything that we've ever had to get to grips with, and you know there was very few sort of European travellers there, but a stunningly beautiful place.
And then we moved on from the Triglav National, or round the Triglav National Park. There was another place that we stayed at on the banks of the Soko River, and the river was just had this very crystal clear bluey green tinge to it. It was really hot. The temperature was in the 30s when we were there, and the sound of me squealing as I hit the water going into the Soko River because it was freezing.
I can still right now feel the pain in my legs from going in that river.
I don't think I've experienced anything so cold.
The pictures were beautiful. The experience was not so. So for me, another area that I would thoroughly recommend is back to Switzerland, and it's the mountain resort of Zermatt. Most people have heard of Zermatt. Most people will have certainly seen the Matterhorn, which is the main mountain that overlooks the village, because it's the mountain that's on the Toblerone box.
Yeah, we spent 2 or 3 really fab days in Zermatt. It's not a cheap place to visit, even though we were in the campervan, because it's non-motorised, so you have to stay down in the valley if you're in a campervan. Really lovely campsite, but then you had to get the mountain train up to Zermatt every day, which was expensive, but it was worth it.
It's a very strange environment with no cars being allowed up into the resort. They have these little electric trucks that deliver things around the village, but everything's on foot once you've got the train up. We had a lovely couple of days there. We could never ever afford to stay there in terms of staying in the village or staying at hotels there. It's a premium resort, but it is surrounded by the most beautiful set of mountains that are quite easily accessible through the lift system. We took advantage of that and had a couple of great days there.
The last place we want to talk about that is not technically in the Alps is Anisee. We're sat here on the edge of Lake Anisee doing this video, and it's almost like the gateway to the Alps. Whenever we go through to the Alps, we come through Anisee or Geneva and Lake Geneva.
Anisee has a feel almost like a seaside resort, because in the summer there are so many campsites on the shores, and the campsites are very, very busy, and the town is very, very busy, but it has a lovely, vibrant feel, very unlike some of the quieter mountain resorts.
Yeah, and there's just so much going on. We love the fact that you can almost have like a beach holiday here. Like Richard said, there's lots of campsites, just like on the French coast. One of the things we love doing is cycling around the different parts of the lake and out into the hills from here. So really that's just a snippet of the reasons why we love being in the Alps and some of the places that we would so recommend for you to visit. There are dozens more, we just haven't got time in the videos.
We're purposely putting out this video because we know that in the new year people start thinking about some of the places that they'd like to go in the summer. We'd never considered the Alps, but 4 years ago we made that decision to come here, and we've been coming back every year since. It's that good. So our plans for the summer, we've got on our bucket list other areas where we want to go to in the Alps. One of the things that we're not making the mistake of is in our first year we tried to do too much too quickly. Whereas last year we learnt by our mistakes and we confined ourselves to just a few small areas of the French Alps and stayed there and really immersed ourselves in those local communities, and we had a blast. So there's going to be more of that this summer.
Bye.
Bye.